progress and to happen. It's what supervision is all about. We sit in the space and we allow what is arising to arise, and we allow ourselves to be touched and informed and moved by the conversation. And so Lily, Mary, and I did this and just discussed what we had learned, what we had seen, what we had reflected on, the mistakes that we had made, and what we had learned as a result of that. And so it's really just, and we ask the reader to walk alongside us, to let themselves be touched by our experiences, by our thoughts, by what we heard from our Indigenous colleagues and clients. Is that a fair kind of summary, Lily?
Yeah, it sounds fair. It was, to me, it was a very humbling experience. I've been working in the Indigenous world for probably about 6 to 8 years here in Canada. And so these are supervision and coaching clients that we interviewed and shared our experience through our lenses.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think every time we entered the conversation, we entered it from a place of knowing even less, if that was possible. Every time we came back to talk about our top chapter, we knew less than what we knew the first time we had met, and the second time and the third time. So yeah, it was very humbling. Yeah, thanks, Lily.
And since that time, we have introduced an Indigenous coach training cohort here in Canada. And on October 26th, we'll have 10 coaches, Indigenous coaches, graduating. It's been a great experience, lots of learning. Yeah, thank you. So Damien and I wrote 2 chapters together. One on resistance to supervision and what that's all about. It came from I think it was an EMCC conference that we hosted a session on resistance and what it means and why there's resistance, especially in the Americas. I find it's less so now. When I first started supervision 10 years ago, I was an internal supervisor, and it was really easy to do the work, individual and group. And when I decided to leave the organization after a couple of years, and I hung up my shingle, nobody came. So I had a couple of years where it was pretty sparse. And now I think supervision has hit the mainstream in the Americas. I get people looking for information on supervision on a fairly regular basis. So I'm feeling really good about the trajectory of supervision here. So a conversation on resistance, and then we also did a session, a chapter on group supervision, which we took a different slant. We took a recording of a supervision session, and we sort of pulled it apart, and we talked about different parts of a supervision conversation. And it's a pretty, I don't want to say basic, it was with newer coaches, so it was through the lens of a new experience of supervision. So that was kind of an interesting project as well. And I kind of remember all the different other chapters there. Maybe Linda, you can help us, give us a sense of what's in that book. It's been so long since we were working on that book. It felt like birthing a baby, let me tell you.
I bet. Well, the book is divided into 3 sections. And the first section is who we are. The first chapter is multi-systemic fields model for culturally sensitive coaching supervision. And then walking with our Indigenous clients and colleagues. And then coaching supervision, a study of perceptions and practices in the Americas. 4th is resistance to coaching supervision in the Americas that Lily just mentioned. 5th chapter is the business case for coaching supervision, an American tech-enabled coaching platform's drive for quality. 6 is ontological and systemic coherence model in coaching supervision. And 7 is applying a systemic developmental approach to coaching supervision, experiences from the USA. Section 2 is how we work. First, supervision in globally challenging times, supporting coach well-being by reflecting through 3 lenses. Next, resourcing, restoring, and responding through coaching supervision, a practice of noticing, embodying, and cultivating resilience. Next, coaching supervision, insights into 2 US-based cases and perspectives. Next, the magic of group supervision. Then a framework for group presence in group coaching supervision, an exploration of group supervision, supervision in the Americas, working with virtual technology, and then finally in that section, the creative journey in coaching supervision. And the third section is how we learn. Understanding the developmental journey of the coach supervisee. Next, remaining relevant and fit for purpose, a core challenge for coaching. And the last chapter is, or section, introducing supervision into training programs for professional coaches. And then there's a conclusion by all 4 of the editors.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Linda. I don't have my book here, so that was perfect timing. Okay.
Yeah. I'm glad I got mine.
Yes, I
I
am
can be
too.
helpful.
All right, so let's open up the floor for conversation, questions, comments, thoughts, whatever you want to, whatever coming up for you in this space as we think about this book coming out.
Lily, can I ask Linda to show the cover of the book? It's really wonderful. I'm a very visual person. I just love the cover.
It is. It's beautiful.
It really is. Thank you, Linda.
You're welcome.
That was a Routledge. They gave us a choice of about 15 covers, and that was the one that we decided on. Thank you. Thoughts, comments, questions?
I'm curious about the chapter on resistance in coaching, because I remember some conversations several years back with Damien and I think yourself with there talking about some of the resistance. And I'm with a group of a couple of people who are trained and qualified supervisors here in Japan. And we are trying to introduce more about supervision in Japan. And we are finding quite a lot of resistance. And I've come across that in some other parts of Asia too, a little bit. And I'm wondering, you know, from your experience, you know, what would be 1 or 2 key things that might help us as we try to promote and show how important supervision is in the coaching profession?
That's a great question. What do people think are the 1 or 2 or 3 top reasons why supervision is a challenge to bring into the coaching world? What's your guess?
I think it has a lot to do with the idea of supervision, whether it comes from psychology or the profession of psychology and how they supervise. It's the idea of someone looking over your shoulder. People are really resistant to that, you know, experience. And I heard someone in a supervision group recently from the UK, and they described supervision as critical reflective practice. So I'm promoting CRP instead of supervision.
Yeah, so number 1 is the title, the name, supervision. And there's a conversation that happens is like in the UK, there's less resistance because it's been around longer. And also a lot of organizations require coaches who are in supervision. So you got to actually name your supervisor and talk about what you learn in your supervision practice. So that's the main one, is the word. And I think the train has left the station on the word. I don't know if we can switch it, but what I tend to do is something similar to Sunny. I call it reflective practice, AKA supervision, so that it starts to shift that mindset. Danny?
Yeah, to me, my experience is that since in Indonesia, mostly coaches really have the credential from ICF, right? Not from EMCC. So ICF is not really strong in pushing people to have supervision, right? So I think this is again depends on the body, in this case the ICF. So, but I think ICF is also starting now to get into supervision as well, but kind of slow. So then when I introduced myself to be a supervisor, then they just ask about the methodology, and then that's nice and all that thing, but then we are not required at the moment. So what for? I need to spend time and money for this and all that things. So then I provide pro bono supervision, but then they start to like it, and then they start to pay, but then it's very minimum amount of money also. So
Yeah, there is an education piece. I remember that I was working with Scott Richardson and Diana Stoistovscu from Romania, and we actually did probably 50 webinars at ICF chapters around the world. And what we did was we actually demonstrated, so we had somebody coach someone, and then we had a mentor coaching session, and then we had a supervision session, so people can really see and feel the difference. Because you can talk about it until you're blue in the face, but until they see it or feel it, it doesn't really resonate.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's really important, that education piece, Lily, and you know, the ICF competencies, the competency 2 does ask coaches to develop a reflective practice through supervision and other means. So it's there, but perhaps, as you say, Danny, maybe not as strong, but it's absolutely in the competencies. But I just wanted to say, you know, what a great question, Elizabeth. And, you know, I'm thinking about my supervision experiences, and I do supervision for a coaching body. And I hear so many coaches say how amazing supervision is, and that people get so much value from it. But then there seems to be some sort of resistance to investing in self. As coaches, we have some sort of resistance to investing in our own reflective practice. So yeah, it's not an answer, I guess, Elizabeth, but that's just what I'm noticing in the work that I'm, you know, through the work that I'm doing, what I'm hearing.
I can share a few thoughts if you like. Sorry, did I interrupt you, Elizabeth?
Or is that
No,
initially?
go ahead, go ahead.
Right, okay. So one thing that I've seen it that people try to invest when it becomes a necessity from the system. So when it comes to mentor coaching, for an example, you need to have the 10 hours of mentor coaching for your credential renewal or for your credential purpose, then you invest for the mentor coaching. But when it comes to coaching supervision, if you take ICF, they say you can have 10 hours of supervision, which is equivalent to CCU, which is kind of optional. But for team coaching, yes, it's compulsory to have 10 supervision hours. So this is, I have thought about it a lot, and what I have recognized is, like, because people react to things which is a necessity created by the system, we are going in the wrong route by creating systems like that, which is not good for human well-being. Ideally, we should start bringing it to their awareness, saying, it shouldn't be a necessity that's created by the system, but necessity that's created by your own self for your own growth. That's when the real growth happens. Then if we start making it as a necessity of the system, we always wait for that moment to come to invest on our growth. So that's what I'm reflecting on. For me, I have personally made it as supervision is a necessity for me, for my growth, for my journey. And I have seen value in my journey, and I have also seen value in the coaches that I support. And I see a great shift happens in supervision. It's sometimes cannot be put into words. So those are my thoughts and reflections. Any disagreements, agreements, I'm happy to hear, because I'm also evolving every day.
Thanks, Anushley.
Thank you, everybody, for your inputs. It's interesting for me because as you can probably hear, I'm British, and I'm coming from a background where supervision was required even during my coach training through the EMCC. So I guess for me, some of that resistance is like, what's your problem here? And then, the practical suggestions you've made are fantastic. That's what we've been doing. But even getting people to come to webinars that are free, we're struggling a little bit with that, but we keep plugging away. I think also language is an issue. A lot of Japanese coaches would not be able to undertake supervision in in English. And of course, I only know one supervisor in Japan who's Japanese. So I think there's a language issue there, but there are also a lot of English speaking coaches working out of Japan. And there's still, we're making some traction, but it's very, very slow. I'm also coming up against what you said, Danny, about ICF doesn't directly mandate supervision as part of its credentialing or re-credentialing, whereas it is part of the EMCC processes. And I do think that maybe has a bit of an impact. But I think the fact that in the updated competencies, they're now talking about reflective practice, the CCUs, and it's necessary in team coaching, that's also going to maybe have a mind shift. And I'm Anushi, this kind of coming from your own desire for personal growth and developing as a reflective practitioner. The coaches that I'm working with here in Japan who kind of said, right, we're going to dip our toes in the water and try it. They are doing what you said. They are understanding the benefits and are like, wow. So yeah. Thank you. Leanne, I think those are probably the coaching supervisors that I know.
Thank
you. Thank you.
I just chatted, Elizabeth, that there are two Japanese coaching supervisors that went through CSA. So
yeah, those are the two that I know. Thank you.
I think for me, there's an honoring, isn't there, of choosing the life as a coach. And I work in an organization and I work in a team of 18 coaches, and everybody often teases us about how working with our department is like herding cats. And they say, if you want somebody to do it differently, give it to the coaching department because they'll recreate it, they'll change it, they'll shift it. If you want something to be done exactly the same, give it to L&D because they'll replicate it and scale it and make it exactly the same. But coaches will change it, shift it, and some of you are smiling and nodding because you recognize that part in yourself, which is really about looking for possibility and expansion and what's possible. I've already said that. So I think somehow or another, that kind of view of the world and that mindset and that gift that coaches bring, which is how can we make this possible, or how can we change it, or how can we do this, that, and the other thing. There's a kind of disconnect with, okay, now go and talk about your practice. And I think I echo what, there's a kind of feeling that, oh gosh, I'm going to be, you know, my wings are going to be clipped, or something's going to happen to me, or I'm going to be, you know, told that I shouldn't be doing what I'm doing, or something like that, that I think happens. And I noticed it in myself too when I first went to supervision. I was sent there because I was in an organization, and I was like, oh, I'm going to be judged and evaluated and assessed. So, and then it took me a while to realize, what, you're here for me, so that just to support me, I can talk about anything, you know. And I think until I got that feeling, it was hard. And so I think it is really just about honoring where we all are on that process, and the readiness, and honoring the resistance, you know. So thank you. I love this conversation.
Yeah, and I think there's something to be said of, in the UK, most, I don't say all, but many coaches come from a psychological background, or they have some sort of they've come from that field and moved over, so they understand supervision. So it was an easier maybe sell. Even the coaching frameworks have more psychology in them, I think, than some of the coaching schools here in the Americas. That's what I've noticed anyways. And so, and Peter Hawkins would jokingly say that coaching was born out of business refugees here in the Americas, right? So I'm finished with the business world. I'm going to go out and be a coach, and you can't tell me what to do, and don't give me a supervisor, because I'm done with supervisors. Right? I'm just saying that kind of tongue in cheek, but I think there might be a little bit of truth, a truth thread through that, is what I'm noticing. Because when I'm working with in the supervision space, and I do quite a bit of group supervision, but what I'm noticing is in some schools, like, there is a very hard line. Like, you don't go there because it's therapy or it's counseling. Like, there's a hard, like, don't even talk emotions, don't even talk feelings. And I'm going like, wow, that's an interesting place to come from. We're human beings, right? So we have feelings, we can't deny them. So yeah, that's kind of what I've noticed over the years anyways. Danny.
Yeah, I'm wondering, because Zoe in China is helping Damien to translate to the Chinese, right? So it seems to be the market is there. So maybe you can tell us. I think the people in China there are kind of accepting supervisions quite well. So tell us what's going on there.
Thank you, Danny. Yeah, I think I've also been thinking about this question since Elizabeth asked, because China, yeah, maybe compare with Japan, like China's coaching market is even less mature and less developed than even like Japan, I think. So so like when we're doing this, I think Damien is the pioneer now in China to promote supervision, and we do face a lot of like challenges. I think one of the things is that the coaching market is still not that developed yet, not that mature yet. So a lot of the coaches there, many of them, I think majority of them are not like full-time coaches. And many of them are like part-time, doing it on the side. And so and you know, like many of them are not making a lot of money out of coaching. So that's the reality. So so it's very difficult when you talk about invest in self and invest in the self growth or in a reflective practice. I think many of them still like think about the return on the investment, to be honest. So and you know, like mentoring is mandatory for if they want to apply for the ACC and the PCC. So a lot of them are willing to invest in the mentoring, but in terms of the supervision, like people are still like quite unsure about the investment, and also because of the lack of education. So now I think we're just at the beginning of this thing, and like
Okay. So we are all together. America also is the beginning anyway. So
I think
from the book, this book,
the
right?
Americas
The
has
book.
moved along. It's different than it was 10 years ago. It's probably where you are now, Elizabeth. It's like, where are the clients? Why aren't they coming? This is a great thing.
Yeah. But I appreciate everybody's kind of comments and inputs, because in some ways it's reassuring that we're not, that we're on the path. It's just taking time. So thank you everybody for your inputs.
Thank you for raising it, Elizabeth. Linda.
Yeah, I was going to just sort of tack on to the idea of this judgment and wanting to be perceived as a good coach, and the whole way it's wrapped up in being vulnerable. That's where I've seen some of it, is that people are a little hesitant to let you know that they have any insecurities about how they coach. And when a couple of my supervisees that I've been working with through the program, it's more like they're coming for a mentor, or they're coming for some more resources and are focused on its resources. I need to learn how to do this when I get stuck, not and more hesitant to go and talk about their own emotions. And I know that was familiar to me when I started that as well, this idea of putting yourself out there and letting everyone watch what you're doing and hope that you're doing it well. So.
Thank you for that. Anybody else have any thoughts or comments? Could be about other parts of the book. Sorry,
I just want to quickly share something, that there could be a parallel process going on as well with the supervisors who are thinking about coaches resisting to come for supervision. So I like you to reflect on that, because I had this beginning of my journey. Then that's when I started spread my wings and started supervising coaches from outside Sri Lanka, because I was a bit disappointed that I didn't have enough coaches to supervise. They're not understanding, and I was frustrated and all. But I have so many coaches that I supervise, not from my country, but outside my country, which has removed me from my own resistance. So sometimes there could be a parallel process that's going on. So something to reflect on. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great point. We're a global community now. I don't think I have any group that is only Canadians. They're very mixed. So that's also a great space too, because you get to see other coaching school graduates and styles, and that's probably a selling point too, is to have a global group, if you can handle the time zone changes. Okay, what else is going on in our space right now?
I would like to hear from Malaysia what's going on.
Well, okay, let's go Peter, then Sunny, and then we'll see about Malaysia if we have some time. Go ahead, Peter.
Hi, yeah. I mean, listening to the conversation so far, it seems like there are two kinds of, shall we say, hurdles to more widespread acceptance of supervision. One is coaches' internal relationship with the value of supervision. And the other is like the organizational and contextual framing of supervision, where there's a big difference between EMCC and ICF, even now. And I mean, I'm just wondering whether we just need to acknowledge that there's those two sides, or whether there's something that's going on, particularly in the North American context, which is what this book is about, where we heard earlier there's this relationship between how coaching evolved in the US as opposed to Europe, and the role of ICF from my perspective, being incredibly slow to really integrate supervision as something that's integral and central to the coaching profession. And I was wondering, you know, from the perspective of the book, how far is that kind of like systemic relationship between North America and ICF in relation to the development of supervision in North America, really being addressed in relation to the rest of the world, which is where we are as an international group?
Well, that's a good point. And I think if folks remember, probably about 6 or 7 years ago, there was a huge dialogue that was going on in the ICF website around coaching supervision. And I think you might be able to still Google it and find it if they haven't scrubbed it off. And there was a real strong position from some of the founders of ICF originals around resistance to supervision. So they brought up a number of points. And I think one of the things that sort of comes up for me is like ICF is headquarters in the US, which I think is a fairly individualistic society. So it's like, I'll look after myself. Thank you very much. But I feel the shift happening, because now you can use 10 hours of supervision for core CCEs, which is big, right? They're core, they're not resource. And that's what people are looking for when they go to renew. And then with the team coaching certification, it was actually a mandatory requirement to have 10 hours of supervision. So I see the shifting happening. And actually one of the editors of the book, Joel, is from ICF. So he represents ICF. So he was part of the editorial board here. So the shift is happening. It's just, I think it's an evolution.
And do you feel that the book is like a contribution to that evolution
So.
in a direct way or an indirect way?
I hope so. I hope so in both ways, but we'll see. I mean, Joel is the head of research at ICF, and so he sat on the board or the editorial board. There were 4 of us, myself, Damien, Joel, and Francine Campion, and she was the chief editor. So hopefully that influenced ICF, and he was a great contributor. So I think they're moving in the right in the direction that we're hoping they are. Let's put it that way. Seeing this is recorded, let's put it that way. But great question. All right, Sunny, and then we'll ask them too.
I have 2 things, and Peter, I just wanted to point out that you kept saying North America, and it's not just North America. It is the Americas, which includes South America as well as Canada. And I think that's part of our bias, is that we only concentrate on the US. And I think it has a much broader scope than that, especially since we're taking a more global approach. But I also was wondering, because I have been involved in some supervision groups that are affinity groups, and I wonder whether that is one of the ways that supervision can be extremely instrumental and useful, especially in these days and times that there are lots of coaches who may want to join a supervision group that focuses on everything from age to disability to language or whatever that is relevant to their lived experience. And that is one of the ways that supervision can be extremely helpful. I don't think we as coaches often focus on our own self-care as much as we could.
Thank you, Sunny. Sim2.
Yeah. What I also agree in the sense that the direction is actually positive in terms between the professional bodies, and there seems more and more convergence, because I noticed that the distinction as in terms of between the way ICF does it and YEMCC, but I'm very encouraged that with the latest updated competencies on reflective practice be incorporated. And it's about being part of you. It's integral to who we are as a person and who we are as a being. So there's much more a human element, there's more acknowledgement of how we show up and how we are in the space and so forth, which is to me I resonate towards that. And also, and I noticed that from my experience that if you ask a coach, a professional coach who actually does full-time coaching and takes an earning from there, they really, really appreciate one thing you ask them, what would you like from the company? And they will say it's supervision. When they have experienced it as reflective practice, where they can just come in and just share what's troubling them, what they're frustrated, what they're curious about, and bring all those professional emotions in, and then they can process it, and then they get this collective wisdom and on so forth. And it's such a joy to actually be part of that. So I think the V of supervision and the reflective practice, and I like how you've talked about how the phrases are connected, rather than taking it from an academic perspective. So it's encouraging also to see that team coaching, which is also a bit scary in the sense that I went into the DTCI team coaching, and then suddenly you see ICF also doing team coaching, professional team coaching, accreditation. Then you begin to also reconcile what's happening between the two professional bodies in terms of the competencies. I'm seeing more and more convergence. It's exciting, but it means that we as professional coaches, we have to like keep up as to what's happening out there and to make sure that whilst you be certified accredited in one area, do you also have to be accredited in another professional body? So because we're an international global company, and like the question is, I don't see myself as a Malaysian, but I'm seeing myself as global. For practical reasons, I've been worked more with the European community because of time zone, and I love the reflectiveness of the community and how we talk about weather. Just talking about weather, talking about how we go out to the garden, how we enjoy seeing, to me, how I enjoy seeing the butterfly fleeting. That's opening me up as a human being. And I've really enjoyed being the journey as being a supervisor from that opening up as a human being.
Lovely. Thank you for that. Any other thoughts at all? I was having a conversation with Leanne the other day. May I share, Leanne? It was in the context of supervision. And we were talking about the different ways to be in the supervision space. And I had shared that I have a number of individual clients that are bringing very big, esoteric, what's the meaning of life kind of questions to the supervision space. So it felt like a whole shift in sort of, and I was wondering, well, what am I doing? What's my energy that's attracting that kind of conversation? So maybe, Leanne, do you want to just say a little bit about the transpersonal supervision that we talked about, and just before we end here?
Yeah. Damien actually asked me to do a session for Asia for this group, so you might hear more about this. So does anybody know what I mean by the transpersonal? Hand up.
I'm getting a sense.
Yeah. So
I don't know. I don't know
kind
what's
of.
that.
So the transpersonal is the name given to anything beyond the beyond the person. So personal is personal, transpersonal is anything beyond the person. It's when you have an experience when you know yourself as more than the person you take yourself to be, like a peak experience. Or sometimes when we look at beautiful sunsets, we have that sense of awe and wonder. When we go walking in nature, we sometimes feel very connected, and we suddenly feel not so separate. We feel part of the world. We might feel close to animals, or and feel that sense of not being a separate I so much. You feel that there is something more to this life than the way you perceive reality. And the transpersonal is about holding yourself as a person who shows up in the world and has to empty the dishwasher and go to work and take care of your health and sleep well. And you have a journey here that is sometimes more meaningful than just the daily work that you do. That for some of us, we might feel like we have a soul or a heart or a purpose or a gift or something that is being lived through us, a calling, or something that's been lived through us that's more than just the way that we habitually show up in the world. And I think when there is stressful times, often we get in touch more with who am I and why am I here? Because we're called, I think, to do something greater than just what our personal kind of ego would identify as, making a living and those other things. And so for me, it's Joseph Campbell. He has this great quote where he says, "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek." So it's that going on a deeper inner journey, the heroine's journey, or the hero's journey, or the Pharaoh's journey, as people have often talked about it.
Thank you, Leanne. So that's a little marketing for next month. So come on back. Maybe I'll even stay up next month again to listen to this.
I'm not going to be doing it next month,
okay.
but at some point. And
okay.
Yeah.
Let me know when. I will make a point to have a nap that day so I can stay up for your session. All right, we're getting to time. So if anybody wants to just say what you need to say to feel closure for this session, greatly appreciated. Thank you for all coming out. And I look forward to more discussions on the book. I'm sure we'll be bringing up different parts of it at different events as well. Anybody want to say any last thoughts, words to close?
Yeah, just glad to be here to reconnect to everyone over here. And I will make sure to order one book, the book.
Great, thank you. Anybody else?
Lily, you mentioned there's a discount code.
Oh, which? Sorry?
Is there a promo code that means you get a discount?
Yes, Rutledge. Oh geez, I'm gonna see if I can find it for you and I'll send it to you. Okay, it's we posted it on the American Supervision LinkedIn site. If you want to go there,
Okay.
that's probably the easiest way to do it. Great. All right. More conversations to come. Thank you for coming, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Lily, for hosting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Lily.
everyone.
Bye. Thank you,
Bye-bye now.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Lily.